protection of their home. Is that correct? And everybody else seems to be here. All right. Let's do a roll call, and that will confirm our quorum, and then I have the standard virtual meeting message to read.
Commissioner P.
Here.
Commissioner Dodd.
Here.
Commissioner Harris.
Here.
Commissioner Piercy.
Here.
Commissioner Sherino.
Yeah.
Commissioner Blair.
Here.
Chairman Cush.
Present. All right, bear with me. This meeting of the Public Works and Planning Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order Number 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting this meeting electronically is necessary to protect public health, safety, and welfare in light of the coronavirus.
So moved.
We have a motion. Need a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Piercy. Rachel, do we roll call on that, please?
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy. Yes. Commissioner Sherino.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody. I am wearing a new mask tonight, which I should have tried on before, because I can feel the bands pulling my ears forward like Dumbo the elephant. So I may be overly self-conscious, but it feels really strange.
I think you're right, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, yes. Although my hearing should improve, it does feel a little strange. But it is a pretty mess, don't you think? Yeah, all right, thank you very much. All right, let's go with the Highway Department report. And because I know, the minutes, yes. I'm so sorry. It's been a while. Commissioner Piercy, I would like to call on you as Vice Chair to approve the meeting minutes.
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes and I will move for their approval.
Have a motion, need a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd.
Yes.
Commissioner Harris.
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy.
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino.
Yes.
Commissioner Blair.
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes, thank you. Now, Commander Brooks.
How's this going? Are we doing this from the podium or are we doing it from the bench?
Yeah, from the lectern. That way you get some good TV time.
Okay. Ready.
That way we can hear you too, Greg.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I don't want to talk too loud because I don't want to hurt Chairman Cush's.
I can hear you fine now.
But you should have our budget summary. And as you know, we are, like everyone else, anticipating some lost revenue. And I think our budget reflects that. We're trying to hold our revenue flat, and we have decreased our expenditures some, and we are really planning on just moving into a more of a maintenance mode moving forward in the coming fiscal year. So we're going to limit our equipment purchases and as well as any capital projects that may come or may not come because of this revenue shortfall that we are anticipating. So if anyone has any questions they would like to ask, or however you want to do it, this was approved at the road board yesterday. In April, actually, yeah, it was April, at the April road board, and it was a unanimous approval. Are there any questions or anything specifically anyone would want to? That's what I was looking for right there.
Did you take a certain percentage against the line items, or just went through each one and made your best estimate?
Well, some of the line items we didn't feel like we could decrease, Mr. Blair, so what we did was in our $68,714, which is where we purchase our new equipment and that kind of thing, we did a significant cut right there. And I think it probably did about a 10% across the board decrease in our projected expenditures. And like I say, we're holding our revenue just flat. We've always given you a very conservative estimate of what our revenue is going to be, because it's a little hard to project sometimes, but I think with a flat revenue, I believe hopefully we will see that.
The burden that you have with the roads around the new school, you're able to work within that framework even with this budget?
Yes, sir. We back in September of last year, we did a budget amendment where we pulled money from our fund ending balance to start the process out there around the Plainview school sites. So that's how we will produce that money necessary to make that project happen. So yeah, it's even more uncomfortable now that we've had this virus going around. That's stay-home order and everything. It's made it a little bit even more uncomfortable, if that's possible. But we're going to see it through.
Greg, can you hear me?
Yes.
You have $190,756 increase in salaries. Are y'all doing some raises, or are y'all have you added some personnel?
I heard the part of, are we doing raises? What was the second part of that question, Mr. Doug?
Or have you added some personnel? Just curious.
We haven't added any personnel. That's just raises.
I have a question.
Okay.
Am I reading this right on lines 409, 402-ish? You're removing $700,000 of asphalt and likewise amount of crushed stone from your budget next year?
I think what you're seeing is the Plainview. I would have to believe that that's the Plainview money that we are. See, our intent is the money that is left from the budget amendment I spoke of earlier for that project.
Okay.
The money that is left at the end of this year will automatically dump into our fund ending balance. We will retrieve whatever that amount of money is when it dumps and put it back into our operating budget for next year.
All right.
So that we can kind of track exactly how, we don't want to start a new number.
My alarm in my head went off that you're not going to be filling potholes next year for all of our constituents.
Right. That have your phone number?
They have my phone number, believe it or not, yes.
Right. But no, that's where that money will dump into fund balance at the end of this year, and then we will do a budget amendment to put it back, to replace it in the next operating budget. Seemed like the cleanest way to do it as far as tracking.
On, Mr. Brooks, on the school that we are pushing you so hard to build the roads on, it is under some proposals where we're not going to go forward with that for right now.
I'm sorry, what?
So I am proposing that we slow down and not do that with all the budget problems that we're having. So my question to you is, would that, if we did do something like that, would that free you up to do some more road projects that we're going to be kind of delaying because you got all your resources in one area?
Need a chair up here. This is the first I've heard about this.
I said proposed. I didn't say good.
Well, here, just without being able to prepare for that question, here would be my knee-jerk response. My assumption would be that since the property at the location we're talking about, which is out at Plainview, since that property has already been purchased by the BOE, then the proposed stop that you're talking about would be temporary. That would be my assumption. Eventually there will be a school or schools located on that property. And that's just an assumption based on what you just said. But because it already belongs to the BOE, I would think that that would be a location that a school will be built in the future. So my thought would be, if it were delayed as opposed to completely.
No, I'm saying delayed.
Yeah, if it were delayed, that would just give me in all honesty, a more reasonable time frame to complete these improvements. Because it's taken a little longer. We didn't have any notice to start with, and now it's taking a little longer for the right-of-way acquisitions than I anticipated. So I think that would help us, but I don't think we could stop because we don't want to be back in the same.
If we delayed the project, it would help your department a lot. If we do delay the project, it does help your department a little bit as far as, because I know we're pushing you so hard to get this done for 2021.
Yeah, 2021 it's going to be impossible, those improvements by fall of 2021, given the amount of time it's taken to secure this right-of-way. However, we are trying to approach it in a manner that would make the most reasonable manner and where we anticipate the most traffic the soonest. So it may not be, round one of this project may not be 100% complete in the fall of 2021. In all likelihood, it will not be. However, there'll be some vast improvements by then. But yes, I think I kind of got off in the weeds there. The direct answer to your question is, if this project is delayed, then yes, it could potentially help us be better prepared when the schools actually do open.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What percentage of decrease? My math is not very good. Is that about 20 to 25%?
23% deduct.
Pretty amazing.
It's the years. I could pick it. I could see the wheels turning in his head.
You hear the question even before it's asked.
Yeah.
Give me one of those masks.
You have approximately $1 million deduct, or $915,000 in capital outlay. Is that a specific job or jobs you had that you can tell us about that would be delayed?
Again, I believe that most of that reflects that Plainview project. Am I right on that, Ms. Mary?
Yes.
Okay.
We did release $120,000.
Yeah, I saw that.
So 594 from that Plainview budget transfer, and then 490 from.
So this brings up a good point. For the folks at home, what Mary and Superintendent Brooks has proposed is compared to the 2019-2020 budget, they are sacrificing a 23% deduct from last year's budget, which represents almost $3.3 million. So I guess congratulations, but thank you for sharpening that pencil. I guess the question is, do we have enough in reserves if we should have a, pipe failure, box culvert failure, and need an emergency?
With the budget that I'm presenting tonight, if we had something catastrophic,
Yeah.
like a major sinkhole or a bridge failure or something of that nature, then we would, at a minimum, have to go back and rate our fund ending balance yet again, possibly even something more severe, depending on what the event actually was.
All right, and is this the budget that you and the mayor have discussed already?
The mayor and I? I don't know that the mayor and I have had a lot of discussion other than his advice that we trim as much as we possibly could.
Okay, all right.
As soon as we possibly could. The letter that he sent out to all the department heads and elected officials.
All right.
Superintendent Brooks,
Yes, sir.
how will this affect your maintenance of effort? Will there be an adverse effect on that?
Now, we will meet our maintenance of effort. This does meet our maintenance of effort.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to commend the superintendent. This is amazing stewardship of his budget. So I'm extremely impressed. So again, I don't know if congratulations is in order, but I would say
Good luck, maybe?
good luck. But
I've got a lot of good help, Mr. Blair.
yes, sir. But takes good management and leadership too. So thank you, Superintendent.
Chairman Cush,
Questions? Yes, sir.
no one has any other question. I'll make the motion to move this on to the Budget Committee for further review.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Let's roll call.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Thank you very much.
Tough act to follow.
Stay safe.
All right. Tanya, how about building codes? Do you need this back, or is that just?
I just didn't know if you wanted to keep it up.
I'm good.
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Hi, Katrin. I'll go over my monthly report first for April. In April, we saw a little bit of a slowdown, but quite honestly, not very much. We issued 317 building permits. 66 of those were single-family dwellings. And to give that a little bit of reference, this time last year, we issued 73 single-family dwellings with 325 building permits, so it really wasn't that much lower, for a total revenue of $101,966. We did a little bit more inspections than we did in March. In March, we did 1635, and in April, we did 1673. So inspections didn't slow down either. And if nobody has any questions, I'll go on to development tax. Nope. Development tax, we collected $262,500.
How does that stand to what you did last year? Or have you seen any effect of the coronavirus problem slowing you down? You said you hadn't, but.
As far as development tax is concerned, or building permits?
Well, I was talking about development tax, but building permits too. You said that hadn't slowed you down?
We've seen a little bit of a slowdown. We were certainly on a rising trend this year, and we didn't see that. It slowed back down again this month, but like I said, not very much.
Okay.
And we had a total of 171 zoning enforcement inspections in the month of April.
Are those up or down? The inspection, are those up or down compared to the last couple of months?
That's pretty normal this time of year. It starts to pick up in spring with the tall weeds and grass, et cetera. We'll probably see a rise in that next month.
All right, any questions for Tanya on those 3 reports?
Motion to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner P.
Second.
Second.
We have a second from, I believe that was Commissioner Dodd. All right, roll call.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. What else do you have, Tanya?
So last month, you asked me to come up with some numbers. As best I can recollect, it was budget numbers versus revenue, spending versus revenue. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the sheet that you've got in front of you, and Commissioner P. and Commissioner Dodd, I brought these to the meeting with me this afternoon, but I also emailed you guys a copy. So there is a copy in your email if you can get to that. So the top third of this form that I've given you is fiscal years 11-12 through 18-19, and then 19-20 to date. In the first column is our approved budget. The second column is the actual budget, what we actually spent that fiscal year, and then the third column is the revenue that we brought in that year. And then the fourth column, of course, is the difference between revenue and expenditures. Last month, Commissioner Piercy, you had asked me about fee increases. You'll notice that in 15-16, we had went through 5 consecutive years of spending more than we brought in, and that year is the year that we increased our fees. We did it in May of that year, so you'll see the difference in 16-17 was when we started to show on the plus. The 19-20 to date, the approved budget, of course, is in the first column. The actual in the second column is what we've spent to date, and the revenue is, of course, to date, and we've still got 2 months left in this year. And just for reference, at the very bottom of the page, I just put in the total permits and the total single-family dwelling permits that we issued in each of those fiscal years, just for reference, so you would know how many permits we issued. So you'll see the goal is to keep, obviously, the revenue above our budget, and that's what the increase in the fees does. And typically, we look at an increase in fees after consecutive years of a loss, which is what we did in 2016. Does anybody have any questions?
Back to the other part of my question that I had last month, you really doesn't look that we need to increase your fees now.
Typically, the Building Codes Department only increases fees to make up revenue. If we're not generating the revenue that we need to maintain the department, that's when we look at reviewing or increasing fees. And as you can see, that's not the case.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tanya?
I move to approve her report as presented.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All right. Roll call. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you so much.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy, Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. All right. I would like to do a chairman's prerogative end around here and hold on item number 4 for a minute and move to discuss item number 7, which is litter fines, with Judge Ishod, who has just arrived. So it is our honor, your honor, to have you here. And hopefully we have on our iPad, yes we do, some litter law information. And Lisa, I don't know if you have a copy of this.
I do. Okay.
You do? Okay. All right. Let me give you a background on why the invite. Public Works Committee, and of course Mac Nolan. Yeah, there he is. One of the bad things about Massey is your glasses fog up all the time. So I see a cloud over past you. We have fought, Mac has fought for years and years in the county, particularly in the rural part of the county, and some commissioners face it worse than others, of illicit dumping. And it becomes a larger problem year after year. And more recently, as we have put different regulations because of the COVID virus, and all these people are at home with nothing to do and begin to clean out their garages to keep busy, MAC has been overloaded, and we've had to restrict certain large item disposal. And when that doesn't make them very happy, they just go find the nearest rural road and, yeah. So if you need a nice used couch or a refrigerator, you know where to look. So we have been talking about for some time about putting some more teeth in our litter laws. This discussion's been going on for a couple of months, and as a body, we are in favor of putting some real monetary pain in those that we can catch, or when fellow citizens catch, video, see, report, or if cameras behind businesses or homes see people, when you have the person caught, really make them pay. And ultimately, we think that perpetrator would end up in environmental court and see the Honorable Judge Ishod. And we have asked you here, to give us a little background on what that procedure might be, but also to ask you to support us in the fact that we would want you to be heavy-handed and iron-fisted and support us, because we want to get the message out to our citizens that we're not going to tolerate this anymore, and that there will be a fine to pay. And what we do with that money, we're not sure yet, but regardless, we don't want these people to just get a slap on the wrist or say, hey, that's not cool, don't do it again. So that's what brought us to this point.
Well, going back to when we started the environmental court, we started it, and the only people I really see is the codes department. And then they tend to handle it between them and how they're going to handle the situation. And that's just codes violations. And so littering tickets have never come before me, okay? And I bet since I got elected in 2016, I've seen two. It's not the judicial branch, it's the enforcement branch. And y'all see the law. And so all we can do as judges is enforce the law as written. So you've got the mitigated littering, and it's all per poundage, okay? And honestly, it's the mitigated is a C misdemeanor. The maximum fine by law you could give them is $50. So you can't, even as a legislative body, and you need to talk to your attorney, because I don't need to give any advice, but I don't believe y'all can create something more than the statute itself does.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Yes, recognized.
Judge, I talked to some folks at TDAC, and they informed me that we couldn't go any lower than what is in state code, but we can go higher.
Well, the lowest on a C misdemeanor is 0, and the highest is 50. So
Okay.
unless I see somewhere giving me more authority to do higher than what the state legislature has enacted, now that's just your mitigated. You're talking more about an aggravated littering, okay? And that can go up to a $2,500 fine, because that's a Class A misdemeanor. And then you got your commercial, if that ever happens, which is totally different law. But I would make sure before you do that we know that we can enforce it. So I talked to Judge McFarland today, since he has a lot more experience than I do, just about coming up here, and I said, ask him how many littering tickets he's had in the past, since I've been, and he could think of maybe 2 or 3 also.
Well, we used to have Bart Smith.
Story about Bart Smith.
Bart was, that's what he did. He went around, and not only was he the wheel tax officer for the county, if you had tags that were expired or from another county or something, he kind of controlled that. But he also was well known for finding bags of trash on the side of the road out in Rockville or wherever it may be, and if he found a stamped envelope or a sales receipt or something, then he would fine them.
Right.
And after he passed, nothing happened in the last administration. I think maybe if we need to go back to the General Assembly, they meet in June, maybe we could run something through them to give authority. But I think the goal of this commission is it's just going to continue to get worse as our population continues to grow.
Right.
And the goal of this commission and this committee is to make Rutherford County the cleanest county in the state. So in order to do that, $50 is not going to cut it.
No. And it's, I know a big thing is when they started charging to take a TV in, and it was easier to drop it on the side. And that's when Jeff Davison came about creating the environmental court, but you've got to have the enforcement part. Sure. I'll be as heavy-handed to anything that comes before me, but it just doesn't come before us. So we need, like you said, a Bart Smith, or, we've got a lot of deputies out there. That's not the cool thing to do, is write tickets for littering. I mean, they'd rather do other things, but it's bad. It's bad seeing all that.
I wonder if I'm just brainstorming here with you. I wonder if the General Assembly would allow, instead of all that money going back into the general fund, if, say, the sheriff's deputy got it, if he wrote a ticket, then 50% of that ticket went back to the sheriff's department.
To give them more incentive.
Yeah, to give them more incentive. There's got to be some skin in the game, and they're going, why should I do that?
Then you got to look at your district attorney, and you got to have your prosecutors ready to prosecute those people, because when cases come before me, we'll call the docket, and if they have a lawyer, then the lawyer goes and negotiates with the prosecutor, and then it comes back before me, and they might have reached an agreement. So it starts with the law officer arresting the person, then it starts with your prosecutor, prosecuting it to the extent that the county wants and that they feel comfortable. But it's a problem. It's a big problem.
It is, and it's going to continue to get worse. But if we're not doing our due diligence as elected officials to turn a blind eye to it, going, well, it's $50, nobody's going to enforce it, so why worry about it?
Right.
No,
it's enforced. It's just never cited.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen it, and they don't bring it into the environmental court. And like I said, we're doing codes violation. PAW's got to be way too out of control for a 1 o'clock docket, so we put them on the general docket just for everybody. We thought it would help by moving them to 1, but it didn't. It was too much.
I think this gives us some basis, Mr. Chairman, to start with.
Sure.
We started working with our members of the General Assembly, and, I think Mac has a question.
Yes, Mac.
He's moved.
Happened over the years, and before you started, this was before you became judge, get an officer to actually write the citation. And I've been myself to sit down and speak with the assistant DA, and then it gets thrown out of court. We can't prove you put it there, even though it's got your name on it. And my understanding is Tennessee state law, it's your trash. No matter who's did anything with it, it's still yours.
Right.
But they would throw the case out. And then so what happened is the officers, they're not going to spend time in court for nothing, so they quit writing the citations. Now what I can do is, if Mr. Cush has a big bag of trash that we pick up off the side of the road, we can bring him a whole load and put in his yard, to let him have it. That may stop him from doing it again, but it's not going to stop everybody. What I would like to see happen is for the law, everybody come together and make an example out of some people and make it stop. And if I read the law correctly, on the big illegal dumping, $2,500, if somebody turned them in, they got convicted, that person got the $2,500. It came to us to send to them. And if we could make that happen, we'd have people quit their jobs and start hunting for illegal dumpers.
Yeah, trash bounty hunter.
I think right now all funds go to to Rutherford County, general fund. But you're right. I mean, money talks. It really does. And I think with the way we have technology today, everybody's got a camera on their phone. Everybody almost has a Ring camera on their houses. Even if they're going down a country road, there might be a farmhouse right there that catches them go down, and you can see that car and figure it out. But we just got to be more. We just got to get the enforcers out there. I'm known to be a little heavy-handed, so y'all don't have to worry about that. I can take care of them when they come in the courtroom. I just need them in the courtroom.
Had this happened today in Sand Hill, resident came in, we're not taking any building materials. Whole truckload, started unloading, the center attendant, no, you can't. Got me on the phone, had the secretary call the Laverne police. Guy was still there cursing when the officer showed up, still wouldn't stop. The officer said, "What citation do I write?" I said, "There actually is not one that I know of for that." I said, "But what I want is that guy to never return to our center, and I'd like for you to do the report so we've got his name and address and all that information so we can actually watch for him." We don't have any teeth. All we can say is no, and we can't stop you. And the residents know that. I've had a text message sent to me a couple of weeks ago. I started to print off and leave all of you see, but I didn't want it to be actually in the public. But it was some of the worst language I've heard in a long time. And they asked one of the center attendants for my cell phone number, and they gave it to me. So that's how I got the text. I called the number. Believe it or not, they would not answer. But our center attendants get that type of language regularly, and they do not deserve that.
No, nobody does.
Something to help protect them.
I think we start out with talking to the county attorney about what we can do with the laws to give them more teeth. And even a law, because there's not. If they're dumping and you've already said stop at a convenience center or wherever they are, there's not one right now, because you're allowed to drop stuff there because that's what it says, but there's nothing. What if you're told no? Oh, well. And then or it could just be amendment to, we don't need new laws, just amend what we have, basically, which wouldn't be that much. And then we've got to get the sheriff's office on board. And like you said, if they get and even if a citizen reports, if you reward the citizen for getting a conviction for doing it, and there'll have to be some sacrificed lambs out there to get people to realize we just got to stop doing this. And I know with the dump getting, no more getting worse and worse, we've got to do something. But I'll be glad to do whatever y'all say. I just want you to know that we don't get many littering tickets out there. So,
Judge, question, I guess if any individual has the right to turn somebody in, I guess could a codes officer also have the ability to write somebody a citation? Oh, okay, I thought maybe you were going to respond to my,
Yeah. I don't know about you writing citations. If somebody's going to be prosecuted, you can actually take out a warrant. And then, but none of these are felonies, so misdemeanor, they can't. But they have to go to the judicial commissioner's office to take the warrant out.
So my question to you then would be, what is an acceptable means of proof? Is a picture, because we're not there. Typically, we get the call after the items have been dumped. So is a photograph from a citizen acceptable? A video? A picture of their
Citizen has to come.
car tags?
Yeah, the citizen would have to come to court because that's where it originated from.
Okay.
They're the one that took the picture. So they'd come and say, yes, I saw them dumping, I took this video, and that's how you get that into evidence, and then that's how it's prosecuted.
So the most of the complaints, the littering complaints that we get is somebody that litters on a personal property. I know you deal a lot with right-of-ways and roads and stuff, but most of the complaints that we get, and unfortunately that cleanup falls back on the property owner because we don't know who dumped it there. And so that's why you don't see a lot of littering citations from us, right?
But I think when we started it, we said, yeah, if you could catch them on camera, if a citizen could get a video of them, and there's some recurring dump spots, I know, out there. If they get I even think one of those, what's those animal cameras, what's those wildlife, trail cams. But the picture says 1,000 words, I'll just say that, as far as proof.
Chairman,
yes, sir, Commissioner.
so a law enforcement officer does not have to witness the act for it to stand up in court?
They would have to witness it, yes.
A law enforcement officer
Or bring the witness with them.
have to witness it.
Because it's a misdemeanor.
So the officer can go on hearsay from someone else, and it'll stand up in court.
They have to bring the person that saw it, bring the person that took the picture, just like the code would have to bring them in.
Okay, thank you. I was thinking it wouldn't, but you should know.
Not a felony statute here where you get a detective to investigate it.
But if it was over 10 pounds and a $2,500 fine, and we split the money, half of it with the sheriff's department, that may be incentive for the officer to show up with the witness in court.
And citizens are getting mad about it, so it might be, they might, I know we've had some reoccurring complaints from reoccurring property owners that it's their dump land or whatever, and they are tired of it. Yes, sir.
A lot of people are wanting to bring back this litter officer. And one of the things that I've heard so many stories, but one of the things is this man would get into a dumpster and find out. So if he goes into a dumpster and he has, say, mail all in there with one person's name on it, and of course that looks pretty bad. How would that come to you? How would you look at that? I mean,
honestly, by the time it came to me, it would either be settled or I'd have a hearing on it. If the person just outright said, I didn't put my trash there, I didn't do it there. And then what dumpster was it? Was it a commercial dumpster that somebody's dumping their private trash on? That's probably what you're talking about. Or was it a trash bag found on the side of the road? So,
Judge, would you step to the mic so you can be recorded? Thank you.
Yeah. So everything's a case-by-case basis, and everything's fact-driven in our courts, okay? And then what I would do is look at the law, and I'd see if they'd been able to prove that part of the law. So that was my job on that. Do we need a special officer? That's y'all's decision. That's your decision as commissioners, but we got a very big county, and we've got a lot of good policing agencies in our county. So I don't know if we need to add more people. We just have them enforce what's out there.
now my question is, if you wrote a ticket,
Yeah.
how does that even hold up? I mean,
Well, they'd bring that in as evidence. They bring in, and that's the hard part because they didn't see him dump it.
right, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if that person just, If they just, yes, I did that, I'm sorry, what do I need to do to make it better? That happens a lot, but if it's a misdemeanor and it's outside the presence of the officer, they've got to see it. They've got to see it happen. Or they've got to have a citizen complainant come to them and say, hey, I've watched this guy 5 times dump in my commercial, or a commercial camera, or whatever, if it's a commercial building or a commercial dump. That would be very much prosecuted and a lot stronger.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Hey, Judge.
How are you doing?
All right, I do see the criminal littering, which is 5 pounds or greater. If that's witnessed by an individual, and that individual contacts law enforcement, and law enforcement pursues it through your court, that person will receive $250. That's not bad. I mean, that's $500 is a hefty fine.
Especially right now.
Especially now. And there's also 80 hours of public service, up to 80 hours, and whoever witnesses it and chooses to go to the trouble of going to court and acknowledging that, it's $250 reward, as it were. So, Chairman, I'm just posing there's some pretty good teeth to some of this, if it ever gets to Judge Eyeshot's court.
That's still, and you're looking at you've got mitigated, then you got criminal littering, you're talking about the B misdemeanor. So
the criminal littering, under the final page on the bottom, I thought, if I read it correctly, that person reporting information that leads to criminal littering.
You could use a portion of the fine.
A $250 reward, if I read it correctly.
Yep. And it's the criminal littering and aggravated criminal, the person that's reporting it can receive up to $250 reward. Well, we just got to get them in there.
Got to get them in there. And 5 pounds, if maybe Matt can address this, and all littering between 5 and 10 pounds is criminal littering and a Class B misdemeanor. 5 pounds could be achieved pretty quickly. Somebody's unloading a pickup truck on the side of the road and gets caught and witnessed and turned in.
Yeah.
It's a pretty hefty reward.
Your Honor, in the case of criminal littering, if the individual hired an attorney and the attorney and the prosecutor made a deal, can you overrule that deal?
I can. Mm-hmm.
So rather than being a sweetheart deal, you could make...
I cannot accept it. I can just say, I'm not going to accept this. Then what they can do is bypass the General Sessions Court and take it up to circuit. And circuit, they're dealing with murders and all kinds of really harsh cases, and if they get a littering charge up there, circuit judges are going to be angry. But that's how they can bypass if we use our independent and say, hey, we're not accepting this deal. Have a preliminary hearing. But we absolutely can do that. Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to share briefly about the area of the family who live there. So someone, throw might be mattress or something on the road in front of his house, and then I called Mr. Matt. So he had done a wonderful job, and so they're so happy. When I mentioned to him about something similar to what we're talking, he said, "Oh, I'm glad. I'm supported. Talking about that." Well, I said, "How much you think about the fees? Fine, 50 enough." Now he said, "Higher. Maybe they can get the lesson from that." And thank you.
And I think Commissioner Dodd talked about the B misdemeanor is a $500 fine. $250 of that can go to the person that reports it, and that in today's time, every little bit helps. And then the maximum of $2,500, if we change that with the legislature to even make it a greater reward, or let it go to the county officers who are investigating it, that might help.
All right. Any other questions for Judge Eyeshot? We know what our part needs to be, and that it's enforcement. And the other part would be, if we want the $50 to get up, we need to go in June and talk to the legislative body and up that number. Mac, any more questions For Lisa? All right. Judge, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your help, as always. Thank you. All right. Let's jump back to planning and engineering. Do we have a report from planning and engineering? Doug, thank you. Sorry for the delay, but she's taller than you. Yeah.
Just the reality I deal with. She has more hair too, so that's good. Okay, good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Just have a couple things to discuss with you tonight. First is the available lot inventory for through April of this year. You'll see for the number of recorded lots, we are down to 941. It's down about 40 from last month. We didn't have much in the way, excuse me, this mask is creeping down on me. We didn't have much in the way of plats, larger final plats being recorded in the month of April. But we still had, as Tanya had reported a little earlier, we still have a pretty stout amount of activity going on. Our planning commission load has gone down as far as the plats and plans that have been considered. Again, I expect that to kind of rebound as things start opening back up again. It's not that we haven't been doing any plat and plan review, just a lot of the larger ones. We just haven't seen quite as many as those. I will say, though, as far as just regular activities concerned, our day-to-day activities, that's going as strong as ever. I will say that, you know, the economy may have slowed down some this last month, but it hasn't been because of the pool installers. This is normally our time of year for pool and accessory structure permits. We've been getting several of those a day. So that is still moving along at a pretty good pace. So just to give you some idea of what the building activity looks like combined with Tanya's report a little earlier. If there's no questions with that, I'll go ahead and move into the rezoning report. And Mr. Chairman, I'll just kind of take your direction on this. The rezoning requests that we have going before the county commission this month are the same four we had going last month. You'll recall last month those public hearings were postponed due to the response to COVID-19. This meeting coming up, both our planning commission, board of zoning appeals, and county commission next week have all been advertised as digital meetings with the ability to remote in using Zoom, even for the public hearing portions of those. So the four items that you have on here that you'll see going before the Board of Commissioners next week would have been the same four we would have had last month. I did go over those last month. I'll be happy to do it again. Again, I'll just kind of take your direction from the chair, however you want to go forward with that.
I don't see any need to be redundant. Do you all? Doug, for the sake of time, we'll just move on.
That's all I have. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions for Doug on his report?
Motion to approve his report is presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second from Sereno. Roll call, please.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Abstain.
Did he say abstain?
I did.
Thank you. Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy? Yes. Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Doug, thank you. If I'd have known it was that fast, I would have brought you up earlier. Next time we'll chat. All right, let's see. Go back to the playbook here. All right, number 5 is Becky on the RFI. Becky's father-in-law? Father-in-law. I'll let you give the update if you don't mind. Stepfather. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Becky is up in Kentucky with her father-in-law, and it's in a rural area. And she was unable to get back. They had some storm damage last night, and her service is not real good. We had planned on her maybe zooming in for this meeting and contributing in the RFI, and if not, she couldn't do that, get good service. She was going to phone in, and she's still having problems of reaching us, but before us tonight, we have gone through the proposing things that we wanted to put into the RFI, the request for information concerning our landfill. So you should have that on your SharePoint tonight, as Steve, myself, Becky did Chorman's job in doing this, along with Mac, in putting together the information. You'll notice and the things that have changed from the last time that we met, when Becky was here, when we were over here in 205, that was probably February-ish, I guess, at the second meeting. The things that are in there tonight would be reflected in red or in blue. I'm not if it's on your SharePoint. The things that have not been discussed previously, and things that will need attention from this committee as we start to move forward. It's up to the committee, Mr. Chairman, if you all want to take this under advisement tonight and review what's put in here. We need to put some dates after we decide, after the RFI is sent out for all those different organizations, be it Waste Away up in McMinnville or Republic or Waste Management, the composting facility down in Cheatham County, or even as far away as the company that turns garbage into fuel. I can't remember the name of that company out in California. So whoever wants to come forward during this request for information, they'll request that information, and then once all that is gathered before the committee, and I'll work with the chairman of putting that committee together, once all those submissions are in, we'll need to determine how long we want to give these folks to return that information to us, and then once we decide what information is being requested, then we'll put out an RFP, and then we'll give so many months for the RFP to be put together by the respective companies who want to come in and do something with our trash and our waste stream coming into Rutherford County. So that'll be kind of put out on a bid type basis and see who wants to come and make the most out of our waste stream here in Rutherford County. Mr. Chairman, how do you want to proceed tonight? Do you want to set some guidelines on dates? You want to
Chairman Cush?
Take it under advisement?
I have an answer to your question, but I would like to.
Idea. I was going to recommend that we put our subcommittee back together for in 2 weeks and look at this solely and nothing else, and finalize what we need to here so we can move forward with it.
Yeah, and hopefully Becky will be back.
Yeah, Steve is bringing Rachel the calendar. Our thought is that sometime we can find a date in the next 2 weeks. Typically our subcommittee met on a Wednesday evening, if I'm not mistaken. And I would like to meet in this room where we can still have the appropriate social distancing. And we will dedicate that time slot to nothing but this RFI and filling in those blanks and answering those extended questions about once we release it, do we want a 60-day, 90-day return? Because I'm so sorry. May 19th, we also have to remember that we're also dancing around a bunch of other meetings because of budget. But Rachel says that Tuesday the 19th is open. And does anybody have a conflict for May 19th? Let's say 5:30 time. You do, Craig?
Yeah, we have agriculture.
Okay. That's an evening meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I have a conflict as well, Mr. Chairman, on the night of the week of the 18th.
How about what about the 21st? What about the 21st? May 21. Does anybody have a conflict?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Phil, all right. This is kind of soon, and I'm not sure that Becky could make this, but what about May 12th? That's next Tuesday. Phil, Robert?
Next week is good for me.
I'm okay there.
Okay. Let's check with Becky, because she will be the anchor, see if she has availability. If that is a no-go date, yeah, 5:30?
I don't have it on mine, but you've got it on there? Is it done?
You have budget at 5:30 on the 12th? Robert, what about you? You would know.
I don't have that schedule in front of me, sorry.
Okay.
Yes, I don't have that budget.
Okay. All right, so let's do an alternate.
If it's a Friday, of course, but
Yeah.
I can always go.
What about the 13th, Chairman?
I see.
We don't normally have a Wednesday
Yeah,
meetings.
that says BZA, but I don't think anybody here would conflict with BZA. Wednesday, the 13th? Anyone? Conflict?
How long do they usually last? What time does it say?
It says starts at 4. They're not usually more than an hour, I don't think.
You just make it 6.
He's got, we can make it at 6.
Okay. What did you throw up, Mac?
Make it at 6.
Make it at 6, okay. All right, so let me ask this question one more time. Wednesday, May 13th, 6 p.m. in this building. Does anybody have a conflict? Phil, Robert,
I look
Should be
good
good.
at this point.
thumbs up? Thumbs up, okay. And we will check with Becky to see if that's available. So preference number 1 would be Wednesday, May 13, 6 p.m., courthouse. Okay, let me have an alternate. And what about Wednesday, the 20th? Purchasing meets at 4:30, I'm assuming in this room. What if we kept a 6 o'clock time as well? As a plan B, is the May 20th a conflict with anybody?
That whole week, in all likelihood, will be in conflict, so I'll just have to be absent, Chairman. I don't want to disrupt the whole committee.
Okay,
Did you copy?
copy.
20th also?
Yes, that entire week is a conflict for me, in all
Okay.
likelihood. That could change, but in all
All right.
likelihood.
Well, we'll shoot for May 13th at 6 p.m. And Rachel will, as soon as we get a confirmation from Becky, we will send out an email with a yes or no. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. And thank you, Commissioner Piercy, for that suggestion. All right, Mac, you're up, my friend. And while we're waiting on Mac, I would encourage everybody to become very familiar with this latest RFI. Actually, I'm going to suggest you become very intimate with this RFI between now and May 13th. So we'll all be on the ball so we can get this thing going. Thank you.
Good evening. First thing you should be looking at is our landfill report. As you can tell, the landfill is run about as normal as you can be. We still had a lot of rain last month. You can see the next couple of pages that just not a lot of stuff coming in. And if you look at the next pages on that, it says Saturday 2019 report. That's the Saturdays that we were open last year all day. And I'm recommending that we don't open on Saturdays anymore. We don't generate enough revenue on the whole summer to support one Saturday. so it's not worth being open. If you remember, I mentioned that last month, and we just moved on with it, but I was hoping that we could get a vote or something from y'all this month and see what y'all want to do.
So this is a request for all convenient, no, this is.
just
this is
the landfill.
This is just the landfill, I'm
Just the
sorry.
landfill.
Okay, right. And you had zero activity on April, let's see, last week, is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, that 2019 Saturday report
Okay.
is for the Saturdays that we were open in 2019.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that, if you remember, a few years ago, we were open not every other Saturday, it's the first and third Saturday for half a day. And then we had residents say, I can't get there in a half a day, we need to be open later. So we switched it to where we're open one Saturday a month all day. And it didn't work out very well for us, and it didn't work out very well for the residents either. They didn't come very much.
Matt, in total, commercial brush, right? Is this the same report or am I jumping ahead?
Oh, you're
Am I right? Okay. It says 255 tons. What is this money thing? Is that what you took in?
yes.
Is that what you paid out?
No, it's what we take in. That's if you bring brush in across the scales, we'll charge you $30 a ton, and there's no minimum to it, but we do round to the nearest dollar.
Commissioner Piercy, I don't know if you caught the first end of Mac's request, but his request was that we discuss permanent Saturday closure of the landfill. As his report shows from last year, that Saturdays there's basically crickets chirping on Saturdays.
Nothing out there on Saturday now?
Normally what we would be, we're coming up on, it'd be the third Saturday of April through October. April with being Easter plus COVID, we didn't even try to open the month of April. But last year was May through October as well, and we took in less than $400 the whole summer.
How many people are we paying to do that?
We're paying our scale operator, our mechanic, and then our contract laborer to run the equipment.
Not yet. We haven't really discussed it. That was just thrown out on the table. Does anybody see any drastic backlash to a total Saturday shutdown, or should we consider one a month stay open to ease into it, or do we just rip the Band-Aid and yes, sir.
So you're saying that we only made $400 on a Saturday, working 4 people, and you've been averaging that same amount since October?
No, what I'm saying is last year, 2019, the third Saturday of May each month through the third Saturday of October, we generated $325 that entire time.
You're paying 4 people to do this.
Paying 2 of our employees plus a contractor, yes.
So you're asking to close it the third Saturday, or
I'm
you're
asking-
asking to close every Saturday?
I'm asking, no, the third Saturday was the only Saturday we're open, so I'm asking that we don't open on Saturdays at all. We're just Monday through Friday.
All right, that clears it up. So, yeah, we would be ready for a motion if anybody doesn't have any further discussion. Thank you, Commissioner Harris.
Second.
And we have a second from Sereno. All right, any more discussion? How much will that save us a month?
It'll save us 8-hour day. Well, actually it won't, because what we were doing on the Monday before the Saturday, which is pretty confusing. It's hard to advertise that. We would close that Monday just so we weren't working overtime that Saturday.
Oh, good.
So as far as our labor, will still be the same, but at least we'll be there when people are actually going to come.
Okay. Rachel, it's all you.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes. Continue on.
Starting Monday, the 11th, our core drilling. We've been talking about core drilling in landfill. That will actually start on Monday the 11th, or it's scheduled to start Monday the 11th. The weather has held us back a little bit. Our first understanding when we started with it, we did not need to do a minor modification. TDEC changed their mind. We had to do the paperwork. There was no money involved in it, but we have our minor modification from them, and we're still on track to start Monday doing the core drilling. Any questions on the landfill?
How many days did you anticipate that to take?
3 to 4 is what they're hoping for, but it's going to be weather related, and of course equipment can be problems and things like that. So,
All right.
let's talk about convenience centers a little bit. To help explain what we have done, starting early in April, and actually I think we actually started doing it before this past April's meeting. But the amount of trash coming into the centers with people being at home and doing their construction projects, and they're cleaning out their garages and spring cleaning type things, we were literally generating 3 times the amount of trash that we would normally generate in a day. And I got with Mayor Catherine and let him know that we're going to have a problem. We don't have enough trucks and manpower to sustain that. And if we don't discontinue taking some of those items, we will wind up being full and closed on Saturday, and we won't be able to get them back open. We won't be able to haul enough to get them back open without keeping them closed for a while. So he agreed that we need to stop taking the construction demolition stuff and only to accept 1 bulk item. That way they could get rid of their trash and recycles. So that's what we did. And the second week of that, we increased that number to 3 bulk items. And a bulk item, the way I try to define it, is anything that you don't normally put in your kitchen trash can. A sofa is a bulk item. If you go to one of the home stores and you buy a potted plant and you repot that pot is a bulk item. So we accept 3 of those. And we've done that for almost a month. Our amount of trash volume has not decreased. We're still taking a whole lot in bulk items, individual. There's 3 per person or per trip, but a lot of people are coming. We're seeing more people than we've ever seen before, and a lot of people that's never been there before. Our phone is ringing quite a bit, asking where they're located and what the rules and all that, what those items are. So it's people that apparently has trash collection service. They're just getting rid of their bulk items or their recyclables. So that's put us to where we are today. I ran the numbers for what you're looking at on the report for the month of April. That's 725 truckloads of trash. If you'll thumb through your report a little bit further and get to the back of the report to where it shows the totals, that amount that comes out from each center. If you look at the bottom of that page, it shows you the 2019 versus the 2018. For the month of March, we were up just a little less than 500 tons. But if you look at the month of April, the tonnage was really close to the same, but look at the difference in the open top stuff. This last month, we literally had half the open top loads. But we had a huge increase in compactor trash. Eventually, they'll run out of money and quit bringing that much stuff to us. But we need to continue doing what we are today for quite some time. And most often, if I can have the opportunity to explain to a resident why we're doing what we're doing, they understand it. And that's all we can ask for, is understanding. We cannot ask them to like it, because they don't like it. But as long as they understand it, they can accept it. Is it going to be permanent? Right now, it's not. Will it be permanent later? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Have a question?
mean, this is the exception, it's not the norm. I mean,
Right.
people are starting to go back to work. Would that kind of like pan out a little bit more? I mean, I feel like you're saying it's going to last longer than
We would hope so. And here's the other thing. Most of you, I think, have been to our convenience centers, and you've seen our employees that operate those centers. Look at the age group that they are in. They're in the age group that if they get sick, they're the ones that are very vulnerable. So what we're also trying to do and ask our citizens to do is you need to get rid of your trash, absolutely. Bring it on in. But if you've been holding that stuff in your garage for 3 or 4 years, hang on to it a little bit longer. If you expose our individuals and get them sick, we're not fully staffed now. And it's very hard to hire people for those positions. So we'll start getting less and less people. We'll eventually have to close the centers because we won't have anybody to operate them. So we need to, ask all the residents to look out for our people. Let us get through this together. Is the COVID going to get more or worse? I don't know. Some say it is, some say it doesn't. It doesn't really matter. We just need to get through what we are on a day-to-day basis and be prepared for it. Any questions on that? Part of the problem that we're having with this is contamination for our recycling is much worse than it has been. So for those of you out there in TV land, if you're just throwing stuff in our recycled containers just to get rid of it, you're causing a lot of wasteful time for the ones that's done it correctly, because we'll wind up having to take those loads to the landfill. So please recycle right. Most of you know Ashley McDonald. She's got a campaign going. It's Rutherford Recycle Right. So maybe we can get that help started and keep on going with it. Any questions on convenience centers?
Mac, just point of information. I would think that part of your increase in trash by people who you said are calling and you've never seen before, wanting to know where you are. I suspect this. I have a private recycling service that does my recycling. And since COVID-19, they have suspended their pickup, which unbelievable. I have 3 people in my household. And since they're not picking up recyclables, my trash in the city of Murfreesboro trash bin, I mean, it's doubled, tripled, unbelievable. So I'm finding myself making more trips with my recycling to my closest center. So I suspect that's got a lot to do with it. I was notified this last week that my recycling company is starting again their regular route this week. So maybe that will ease a lot of folks' trash problems, because the recycling is going to restart again. But I was amazed how fast my trash bin fills without the recycling aspect.
Sometimes we have a lack of communication, even within the home. I texted my son last night to let him know that recycle at our home would be picked up today. And I had some recycling in my barn. I said, I'll take it to and put it in. You finish it. I neglected to tell him that the new rule was you have to tie that bag. Remember that?
Yeah.
He didn't tie the bag. Guess what happened? They did what they said they was going to do. They didn't pick it up. So it's not their fault, it's ours. And they're supposed to be back, I think, in 2 weeks to run the route again, so we'll hang on to it for that much longer. But a lot of it's a communication thing.
You may also have a problem where people are not dining out as much, and they're buying their groceries and cooking at home.
That's right.
And a lot of the trash that normally would go to a commercial restaurant is being generated at home now.
That's true.
You're absolutely right, to the point that most of you know who Jeremy Jernigan is, runs Middle Point Landfill. They started last week closing the landfill at 4 p.m. in the afternoons instead of 5, and at 11 o'clock on Saturdays instead of 12. And the big reason is just what Commissioner P said. The restaurants don't have the trash, and that was a lot of their business. They don't need to run, they're not running their trucks for that. So we are getting some of that extra trash, yes. we went through the budget. I know the mayor's asked that, all of us cut back on our budget, and we had a big ask in ours, the wishes versus the wants. So I expect completely for our wish budget not to go through. The mayor and I haven't actually discussed that, but that's a pretty fair statement. So hopefully the needs budget will. But and speaking of budgets, the next I have on my list is budget amendments. Y'all have those?
Yeah, what's your first one?
Okay. No, that's, I don't know if I need to answer those or the mayor, which.
Okay, I'm looking over the budget, Mac, and I have some questions on some stuff that I don't understand. On your operation budget and your post-landfill budget, you have on item 312, which is contract with private industries. You have a company called Milton on there, and you wanted $300,000 on operations, $400,000 on post. And can you tell me who they are and what they do?
That's Larry Melton Construction. They won the bid to operate the equipment at our landfill. So they charge us on an hourly basis for each piece of equipment, and it's their labor, their manpower, their maintenance, their everything. So the only equipment we have remaining at the landfill is a bulldozer and a backhoe and a farm tractor. And the farm tractor is about as old as you are.
Yeah, and the reason I ask you this is because I kind of went over, I'm real curious about them, and I kind of noticed that they average around $10,000 to $12,000 per week is
That's
what
correct.
we pay them. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I've never seen, it's kind of like it stays in that area, 10 to 12, but you're working outside, you're working on dirt, and it rains. And you just, me and you, we just talked that core drilling had to be, delayed 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is, are they moving mud, or why are they charging us the same amount each month?
A lot of what
I know it rained 13 days on March.
A lot of what we're doing on the days that it's rained is there's a rock or two in Rutherford County. So as we've dug dirt, we'll wind up digging up some boulders. So we'll move some of those boulders to some of the pit areas that we have created to try to refill some of those pits. And then there's some maintenance issues that they do as well. Is a big rain event washes out something, then they have to come in and repair those washout type areas and that type of stuff.
Mac,
Yes, sir.
I've been looking at that same line item, and I'm just curious as to how that contract is stated. Are we charged by the man hour per person? Are we charged by the equipment? And if so, how are we keeping up with those hours? When those people come out there and they say they work an 8-hour shift, they clocking in and out, or they telling our people, hey, I'm here, and then telling them again when they're leaving? Are we, if it's an hourly thing on the machinery, they should have an odometer that reads the hours? Are we getting a list of the machinery and the hours that they run each week? Because I'm kind of like Commissioner Harris. It seems strange to me that we'd get a bill for a month where it's rained 13 days and you can't even walk across the ground, and we're getting the same billing that we've got for months at a time. Something's not consistent there. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, sir. The price is for the piece of equipment. The equipment price is so many dollars per hour, and it's a clock hour, and it's not actually the clock meter hour that you're speaking of, Mr. P, but it's a regular clock hour. And they do report that with us. We don't have in that bid any manpower hours. If we need somebody to do labor, raking or something like that, that's not in the contract. It's just for the equipment only, and that equipment price includes the labor price of the employee that's operating that piece of equipment.
So you're telling me as long as that equipment's sitting on our property, we're going to be charged? Is that what you're saying?
Only if it's being used. If it's parked, no, sir, we're not getting charged for it when it's parked.
Then how are you ascertaining whether it's being used or not? Where's your proof?
they send us a bill for it, but we have our mechanic out there that sees what's going on, and our scale operator sees them when they're coming and going. As far as, them actually clocking in and out on a time clock, no, sir, they don't, not for us anyway. I don't know if they do for their employer or not.
Well, since we're their employer, I'd kind of like to see us do that.
Have them start clocking in and out on our clock?
Yes, sir. If that's how we're being charged, I'd like to then, you report back next month, or after we start that, and we get a month's worth of data and see the difference between what we've been charged and what we're actually paying out.
Okay. I'll get with Mr. Melton, and we can get that started this week.
Thank you.
Matt, do we bid this out every year, or is this just, you've got it?
No, it's a one-year bid with 4 one-year extensions.
How many extensions?
4.
What year is it in?
3, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Do you, and then we're doing an R5, and you know how I feel about the landfill as far as wanting to get the liability off us. So we get rid of the landfill, does that number go away, or does it stay?
No, it will go away. Okay. If somebody else owns the landfill, yes, it goes away completely. Any other questions?
Shanto, do you have a question? Okay. I think the mayor, I think both of us have a question. I'll let the mayor go first. He outranks me.
But that being said, Mike, if we put out an RFP and somebody takes over the landfill, then that's going to make me question on line item 718 on the motor vehicle. We've requested a 4x400 horsepower farm tractor. I guess that's to do bush hogging. Is there some way we can hold off until after the RFP? Because if somebody buys it, then we're stuck with a $74,000 tractor.
Yes, sir, we can. Now, we've been on this path for a long time. The other option we could do is to bid out to have somebody mow it. But I figured over a 5-year period, you're going to spend about as much to buy the tractor as you would to pay somebody else.
Yeah, I get that, but if somebody, say they come in August, September, and they want to buy the landfill, we won't have a need to bush hog anymore, right?
No, sir, we would not.
Okay, well, that's why I'm saying maybe come back halfway through the budget and if we're still on the landfill, then we come back in October, November and buy you a farm tractor, to continue to bush hog. If that thing will hold up till we get through this process, I'd hate to somebody buy the landfill, and then we got to try to sell a used farm tractor.
Yeah, it'd be worth the gamble a year, or push it a year out.
Just push it a little bit.
Chairman Cush?
Yes, sir.
Normally on a farm tractor, if it's sold within the year it's bought in, it loses very little value, if any.
All right. This is, Commissioner Piercy, he's on line item 718 under landfill operations and maintenance. And the request is $74,000 for a 4x4 100 horsepower farm tractor, which apparently is for bush hogging around the facilities. So the question is, why can't we see how much, put an RFP out for a couple of folks that bush hog for a living and see how much that would cost, contract would cost for a year, and see what that would be before we grant a payment of $74,000. I mean, even if it doesn't depreciate, if we may not need a tractor in a year's time, why can't we just push it back a year and pay a guy with a tractor to cut grass for a while?
I see no reason we cannot push it back, but the money you will pay someone else to contract bush hog that will be way in advance of what the value of that new tractor will lose in less than a year's time. You're
Wanna
trying
buy-
to save,
you
you're
wanna buy
trying
a
to
new
save
tractor.
a nickel and spend a dollar.
Yeah,
'Cause-
I see your point.
Now, you said buy a new tractor. It's really hard for government to buy used.
Yeah.
For us to buy used, and we've done it in our department one time, and we made it work, and it was because I didn't want to put it out for bid. If any of you have been to Haley Road, we have a forklift, and we needed a forklift, but I didn't think we would use it but one time a day. We use it a whole lot more than I thought we would. But we put it out for bid that we wanted to buy a forklift of a certain size that had certain options on it for less than $10,000, because the threshold at that time to bid, to go out full board bid, was $10,000. And we actually had 6 bidders and got a pretty good forklift out of that. So to purchase a tractor used, we'd have to write the specs and bid it that way, the same way. But I'm not opposed to a used one, if that's what you're asking.
Is it possible to pull 2 or 3 folks together and bid on bush hogging the property you're talking about, meet with them and show them, hey, this is the amount of acreage we're talking about, and have that done before? Yeah, that's what I mean, and have that number in our hands before we approve a final budget?
It is. We, a couple of years ago, we had let some people cut the hay off for the hay. That way we didn't have to bush hog it. We just had to go trim up what they couldn't get to. And that worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah.
And we've actually got some pretty decent hay out there.
There's some folks that would cut it just to get the hay. So let's, if you don't mind, Matt, can I ask you to call a couple local folks? I'll give you a couple names if you need it, that would meet you out there and give you a number.
Sure.
Every nickel helps.
I got one other thing, Mike, before we leave the issue we're discussing. The mayor made the comment, if somebody come along and bought the landfill, you were referring to the trash on the landfill and not the property. Is that right?
His question was, you referred a minute ago to somebody coming and buying the landfill.
Yeah.
His question was, were you referring to the trash only to harvest the trash, or selling the property as well?
Well, I think that's what the RFI and the RFP will determine. If somebody comes in from Arizona and wants to buy the whole thing, I think we're going to be open. I think this committee has said, and I've said, that everything's on top of the table, anything that comes to us. You know, somebody wants to come in and buy that landfill, I think that's why we're doing the core sampling now, to let these people know what's in there. I mean, that's what this committee voted to do, is to pay for the core sampling so they can determine what's down in there that we don't know. And if they want to come in and buy the property, or if they want to come in and just buy the trash and harvest that out, we don't know. I think that's what we're going through this process to do.
Under the understanding that we were doing the core drilling so they would be aware of what was in it if they wanted to mine the landfill out.
Sure.
Not buy the actual property. You do know that that property is the only thing holding up a mega cell landfill. Could be developed right there on that side of our county.
Well, I don't know what will come to us, but if somebody were, and it may not even be in the bid specs, but if somebody comes and says they want to buy the whole thing, they just don't want to mine it out, then that'll be up to the 21 commissioners to determine whether they want to sell it or not.
I'm very surprised at that answer, truly.
Surprised at what?
At the answer that you just give me on that, because what I've understood you say in the past, you were against that landfill expanding.
Well, I have said I'm against it. I'm just, what I'm saying is,
I'm not trying to pin you down, but
no, sir. But what let me be clear. But Commissioner, you're trying to pin me down because you said you're surprised at what my answer was. My answer is, my word is still what I said. However, this RFP may develop something when everything comes and puts everything on top of the table, there may be some company that we're not even aware of that comes in and wants to do something totally different than what we've seen at this point. I think that's the process that we're going to go through.
I think that, yeah, let me, Commissioner Piercy, speak for myself. I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I'm just going to speak for myself. But we have 21 commissioners that will ultimately make a vote on what happens to that piece of property. Now, I know where you're coming from, and I think that before it's all over, the other 20 commissioners will also know exactly where you're coming from if they don't already. I know what you're trying to prevent, as well as many other commissioners would want to prevent. But I think what the mayor might be saying, again, let me say what Mike Cush is saying. If a company comes in and says, hey man, we're going to do a waste to energy facility, and we're going to mine that landfill, and we want to buy that property to build our state-of-the-art waste to energy facility, and it's got nothing to do with the neighbors next door, then I would want to sit down and at least chat with those people. You see? I mean, I'm keeping that door open for discussion. So I think we need to, you see what I'm saying? I want to talk to those folks that may want to need that piece of property to build something, to do something with the waste that is not necessarily a partner with the neighbors.
I'm well and good with that, but I would want that in writing before that property was turned loose to anybody, that it could not be added to the Republic landfill and turn around and expand onto it and then onto future land that's sitting there waiting on them. Yeah. That's my issue.
I totally get what you're...
Sure, sell it to them. Don't let them grow any bigger, and don't let them build another landfill on it.
Yeah.
Our idea is to get rid of the trash. Like Mr. Harris here said, get out of the trash business. Get rid of the trash that's on that property. There's 200 acres out there that could be used for something else. But don't sell it to somebody that's going to come in here and open the door, the gateway, to let a landfill come all the way to the Betty Ford Road, which is highly possible. We don't want that.
Well, and
I don't want that.
And let me...
My major concern right there.
I understand, and let me say this on the record. And I don't want to get hornswoggled like this county may have done many years ago. And let's say we sell this to an out-of-state company that says, yeah, I'm going to build this huge waste-to-energy facility. And then 6 months later they say, no, it ain't working out. But man, my next door neighbor over here is offering me a nice chunk of change for this. I'm just going to sell to them. I want to make sure that doesn't happen either. So that's going to take some legalese and maybe some help from our or maybe Judge Eyeshot may need to come back and explain what we need to do. But we want to protect, you want to protect ourselves from that from happening. So
let's hope we can.
We are open to everything. Now, whether he likes the neighbor or don't like the neighbor, that's up to Mr. Pearson. But do we have a legal stand to tell somebody they can't bid on this? Or I'm thinking of the legality of it. I understand your animosity towards our neighbor, but I don't think we have the authority or the legal authority to tell somebody they can't bid on the RFI.
We accept the best bid. So the best bid is also includes what's best for us, not necessarily dollar-wise.
Yeah.
Now, to help soften this a little, we may stop it for right now. Our plight for what we've been going through for the last 8 years is well known across the nation. And there's companies that's watching what we're going to do, and you're going to get a bid for everything you talked about. You're going to get a bid for somebody buying it and mining it. You're going to get a bid for them going in and taking it over and adding on to it, and you're going to probably get a bid for somebody to come in and man it, and us own it the whole time. It never leaves our ownership.
Now to answer your question, you seem concerned about my animosity toward the neighbors. I don't dislike Republic. I dislike what they're doing to the community. I've lived out there all my life. I don't know if you've lived in Murfreesboro all years or not. It's irrelevant to me. But they have devastated that end of the county. My biggest concern, I don't care who bids on this. I could care less. I hope we come out with the best thing we can possibly do with the less impact to the entire county. But if it's not managed or watched right, you let that landfill property get sold away. It's just like Mike Cush said, 9 months, Republic will own it. And then the people in Marabella will wear your doorknob off, buddy, when they expand that landfill all the way down to the Betty Ford Road, which it's possible. The land's been mined out, the dirt's gone, the craters are sitting there. I'm more concerned about the community out there. I'm not mad at Republic. I know several of the people that work down there. They're good people. It's what they're doing to the neighborhood, Mr. Harris. It's not the company. And anybody can vote on this, in which anybody will. But I don't want to see that property that our county landfill sits on be turned loose of our control. To let somebody come in a year's time and say, well, we're just going to let them have it, and there's your gateway. See, the county landfill hems Republic up at their location now. You may not understand that. They can get so big on their footprint, and their footprint is used up. With that county landfill, it opens it wide open. I know all the people that live up that road. There's one large farm that's got a lot of dirt on it, and they said if it come to their property line, they'd be gone. So they'd put it all the way from Walter Hill Creek to Betty Ford Road. And surely to God, you don't want that to happen. Thank you.
Mr. Pierce, it's irrelevant of whether you have animosity or not. But to me, I am simply trying to say we cannot, legality-wise, stop somebody from bidding. We can't. And so he said something about building a waste-to-energy facility there. I have no problem with that. My biggest concern is not Republic as much as it is that lawsuit coming landfill we have right now called Rutherford County. I want the Rutherford County landfill to go away. That's how I feel, just me. Now you talk about Marabella. Yeah, we're very concerned with what's going on in the landfill. But I'm not going to sit here. I mean, I'm telling you right now, as a commissioner, we have to take everybody's bid. We have to listen to everybody. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying we got to listen to everybody. And I'm not trying to get in a war with you on anything. I mean, that time will come, but I'm just telling you, I'm just saying we have to listen to everybody. I mean, would you not think that would be fair?
I think it would be truly fair, and I don't know where you got this idea, because my question was if the mayor was interested in selling the landfill or not. I said nothing about letting anybody not bid on anything.
But you specifically said those people did not get this land, and that's what I'm saying. You cannot have a bias towards any company at all. We had to go through the bid process. And you know that being a commissioner, as long as you have, everybody has entitlement to put a bid in on this problem. And that's what I'm saying.
Only entitled if you offer the land for sale.
I don't know what they got.
Commissioner, you need to use your mic. We can't hear you.
Use your mic.
I have no idea what Republic is offering. I don't know. I don't know what they are. But I'm telling you, we have to listen to them and see what they say, and we have to give them the opportunity, and we can't show bias towards them at all. I'm not saying we go that way. I'm not leaning that way. I'm not leaning against her or anything like that. I'm just simply saying we have to listen to every single person, or we have not been telling the truth since we've been here. And I know we're not like that. We just want to hear everybody. That's all I'm saying. I'm not ready to go into that war with you. I know it's coming, but I'm just telling you, all I want to do is make sure that everybody's heard. Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Mr. Harris, I don't think we'll go to war. I think we'll just differ quite greatly on a lot of different issues. But I think in the end that it will come to your light that you will see what I'm talking about.
No.
Thank you.
Mac, before you go on, the mayor would like to interject.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I think that Commissioner Harris is correct. We cannot, from a legal standpoint, I guess we can get our legal attorney to tell us we can't prohibit anyone from bidding once we put out an RFP. What we can do, which happens all the time in state contracts, we can put language in that RFP that we reserve the right to accept or reject any of the bids that come in. That language can be put in there, so it would be up to us to still be in control of what we decide to do. I think the purpose of the core sampling is to determine, because this committee has said, and so the county commissioners have said several times just in the year and a half that I've been back, but we've been saying it long before that when I was in the Senate, saying that is a ticking time bomb sitting out there, because we do not know what is in that old landfill that does not have a liner. We continue to get blowouts. We have no idea what's been put in there back in 1991 or 1992. I've got a picture of a 55-gallon drum in 1990 when I ran for this position that I'm in today that was getting ready to be bulldozed over. So it's no telling what's in there, and that's why we're going to do the core sampling to determine what's in there. But that is a liability that this county continues and may not want to continue to own that piece of property. We may want to sell it to somebody, depending on what we find in that landfill. You know, there may be asbestos, there may be PCBs from transformers. It's no telling what's in there, but I think we'll have a pretty good idea once we do the core sampling starting this next week. My intent is not to sell that, and I still stand on that. But once we put everything on top of the table, we have to be open to determine where our trash flow is going to end up over the next 30, 40 years, and that's what we're working diligently, and we'll have some disagreements along the way, but I think we're much further down the road than we've been in a long, long time. Commissioner, you've done a good job in getting us to this point. I think we're making headway, and this county is going to be in a position, everybody's watching us, just like you said, Mac, people watching us all over this country to see what we're going to do with our landfill and what we're going to do with our trash flow from all these other counties and states that's coming in here. But we're going to make the right decision, and it's going to be the best decision. You know, whether it be composting or state-of-the-art composting, state-of-the-art recycling. I don't think that recycling is really falling off. If you've been reading the periodicals over the last 5 or 6 months, recycling is falling off everywhere, all over the country, and people are just saying we can't afford to even recycle anymore. Cities are giving up recycling programs. Curbside recycling is going away because you can't get anything for it. The Asian markets have dried up. Even Cambodia and Vietnam has dried up. They used to be taking it when China quit taking it. So what are we going to do with it? We've got to make some tough decisions of what we're going to do with our waste stream. But we are headed in the right direction. I feel the confidence of this commission. We'll make the right decisions and make sure that we protect our citizens in Rutherford County. That's what everybody's about. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, Mac, let's go back to your budget, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I've got 2 questions.
Okay.
On the convenience center budget and your line item 105, you have a supervisor director position. And we talked about that, I think, last meeting, that you had taken one of your convenience center employees, and I think that's what your topic was, and you were going to upgrade them perhaps to a supervisor director. But regardless, you have $107,000 in there for a full-time supervisor director. That's you. Okay. All right. Well, did we not talk about that you were elevating somebody to a supervisory position last meeting?
Yes. It's called Convenience Center Coordinator, and we have filled that position, and it should be in a couple of line items down from that.
Okay.
Probably blended in with more than one person, so it'd be hard to sell that individual salary.
Is that a foreman?
Truck foreman is a different position.
Okay. All right. All right.
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Robert.
And I remember going through the budget process last year, and I think it was Commissioner Stevens made an amendment on how much money we could give directors. And I think it was anybody making over $85,000, there was a limit. Does that 107 figure that he just quoted meet that limit that was placed by the
That
commission
107 figure
last year?
is what I was intended to get, but Commissioner Stevens' motion, I do not get that much money.
Okay, but yet you've got it on the budget there, so what should it be?
What I'm making today is $97,000.
Okay,
So I'm $10,000 less than what it was budgeted to be last year, or this current year.
okay, I'll have to look back to see exactly how that motion that passed the full commission went. But thank you.
All right, last question from me on the budget. And it relates to sanitation, education, information, solid waste sanitation budget. Let's talk about the litter crew. You have a couple items in here for litter crew, items that relate to the litter crew, including a vehicle, I believe. This is a litter crew group that are inmates from the sheriff's department, is that correct?
There's no salary in there or no pay for the inmates themselves. The only thing in that budget related to inmates would be the testing. It's like $1,250 that we have, if they get injured, we have to pay for that. The rest of it is actual county employees. There's 2 full-time positions for litter crew drivers and 1 part-time position, and then the educator position has gone away. But the education money has to be spent. So under that in that budget, there's what, $33,000 something dollars? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the portion of the litter grant that has to be spent on education. It doesn't matter who is doing the education. We just have to report through the grant that's where we spent that money.
Okay, so, yes. So the first 2 items, which is laborers and then part-time personnel, that in the explanation it says litter crew drivers, 2 full-time litter crew drivers, 1 part-time litter crew driver. Is that all those people do, is just manage that litter crew and drive around? That's their only function?
Yes, they normally start at 7 a.m. They'll come into the office and they'll clock in. They'll get the litter crew van in the trailer. They'll go to the workhouse and pick up their crew, take their crews out to the roads and or the illegal dumps or where we assign them to go that day. And at the end of the day, they'll take them back to the workhouse, and then they're supposed to be back to our office and off the clock by 3.
Okay.
There's a straight 8. They don't get a duty-free lunch because they deal with the inmates.
All right. And then I see farther down on that page, you have a request for $40,000 for a 12-passenger van, which I believe last month the mayor suggested that you might look at enterprise for a lease option, but that van is specifically for that litter crew.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would be a spare.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Do these guys, like, are they your drivers, are they trained to handle inmates? Do they have to carry a weapon? Are they deputized? I mean, what kind of authority do they have over these inmates?
Okay, when we started with the workhouse, used to, the litter crew was actually ran through the workhouse. It's always been in the solid waste sanitation budget, but it was that part of the budget was managed through the courthouse, the mayor's office, and then the actual employees were workhouse employees. When we wound up taking it over, our employees had to go be trained just like the workhouse employees are. And I myself did that training. We started out when they did it was a 40-hour week worth of training. To answer your question, no, we do not carry weapons. We don't carry handcuffs, tasers, or anything else. If they want to escape, all we do is pick up the phone and say he's headed that direction. We're not going to go after him.
Yeah, right. So I guess the question begs to be asked, why, since this is an inmate situation, why would this not be better housed under the sheriff's department and you not under your house?
Somebody's infinite wisdom way back when they set up budgets and budget groups, that group is in the solid waste sanitation budget, Fund 116, and that's what solid waste is in.
So somebody looked in a crystal ball and said, hey, this makes more sense over here. You guys have any thoughts on that? I mean, I know you're just kind of moving the puddle. It's tax money from one department to the other, but.
Well, the cost of the personnel is going to be the difference there, I would say.
Robert, hold on one second.
The workhouse, I know that they do state highways. Is there no way for us?
Hey, use your mic. Use your mic, Craig.
I know the workhouse, they do the state highways. Is there not any way for us to fall in under them to do yours as well?
The state highway is actually a contract between the Rutherford County Workhouse and TDOT. And it's a contract that they pick up the state roads within Rutherford County. There's other contractors that pick up in other areas. And a lot of times it's the ones that you see mowing on the side of the road. They're actually the ones that pick it up. So that's a true contract. Where ours is actually a litter grant that comes from same department as TDOT, and it's to do the county roads and education. We can do state roads, but we're not required to. So we let the workhouse do the state roads, and we try to do the county roads, and then we try to do the education. Now, their vans, the new vans that they purchased, are real similar to ours. They have more lights on theirs than we do. The trailer that they have ordered is the same trailers that we had built. If you remember, we had one that got involved in an accident. We just got it back recently. Theirs is being built just like ours. Luckily for them, our two trailers were first. And since they built those two trailers, it's a little company out there, Rockville, that custom built them for us. They found some modifications that would make them a whole lot better trailers, and they're coming out with better trailers. Can you run it either way? I guess so. It's like somebody said, it's still taxpayer type money. The reason we wound up with it, there was a gentleman that had been the litter crew driver for a long, long time, and he passed away. And the way county budgets work, when that person passed away, he had a lot of vacation time that had to be paid out. So they waited till that time could be paid out, so they couldn't hire anybody else. There's no money in the budget to hire another person. Bart Smith was a litter crew guy, and Bart came to me, he says, any way you can help us out. At that time, we had a driver that would do anything you asked him to do as long as it was legal, ethical, and not too hard to work. And we could pull that off. So we put our driver running it. And when it came budget cycle the next round, it was in our department.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Help me with this, Mike, because I'm I kind of struggle with trying to figure out, it's my understanding that the workhouse, you were doing county roads, the workhouse was doing state routes, but then just this past year, the third-party contractor to TDOT wasn't doing a good job on I-24 on the interstates. And so they went to Bill Cope and gave the workhouse a $95,000 grant to pick up the interstates. So now he has the interstates and the state routes, and you're still doing the county. My concern is the problem that it's creating at the workhouse is with your drivers not paying attention to the guys at what they're doing. And I'll share this with you. I just got it yesterday of your guys picking up tobacco products. I don't know how they're getting them, but I guess somebody's telling them where you're going to be picking up, because right here's 5 guys that were picking up contraband and all smoking while they're out. And when they get caught, they come back into that contraband to the workhouse, and so they have to get put into solitary confinement for 2 days. It's the only punishment they have, or either if on good behavior, they can shorten their sentence. I don't think they can lengthen their sentence, but that's the only punishment they have. I'll give you a copy of that. But the first one right there was noticed a concerned citizen called, and your guy's Tommy that drives a van? Okay. So they called the workhouse because they saw the workhouse guys. And so the lieutenant went out there and confronted these guys, and they all admitted it. So I don't know how all that's happening, but, you know, I'm not, maybe Tommy needs to go back through some training again. Or maybe needs to go under, if you're using inmates, see I think the problem that they're having at the workhouse, they kind of laughed about it. They said all the inmates want to get on the happy bus and work for you because they can get contraband, whereas when they're picking up trash for the workhouse vans, they're much stricter on those inmates.
The workhouse and I work really well together. Tommy London is the one that's written up this report, and usually Tommy will contact me after they've done an investigation.
Yes, sir.
So I've not heard from Tommy, so that tells me this investigation is not complete.
Well, I think I don't know if he's the same one, but it all happened on 5/1 of this week.
Yes. Now, Tommy London is the recording officer. He works at the workhouse.
Yeah.
Tommy Harris is my employee.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't see Tommy Harris's name in here yet.
You can have that.
Well, all that being said, do you need to have a discussion with the sheriff's department and see?
On the workhouse.
Well, or I guess the workhouse.
Sheriff's department doesn't have anything to do with it.
Okay.
I think it'd be good. It'd behoove us to maybe get Bill Cope and you, and we all sit down and talk about what's the best way to handle it. From the grant perspective, you know, I don't know if it's more of a headache or less of a headache. I don't know which is best, but it just seems like if inmates are inmates, we don't want those struggling inside that population to want to get on the happy bus, you know, as opposed to ones that get stuck on the other one. So, because they get to smoke, and one of them, it says in there, picked up a bag of $16.57 that somebody left for them to pick up, so they're able to use that inside the commissary, so it's creating issues within the workhouse. So,
I have a question, Chairman. If Mr. Nolan and the workhouse people did not pick up the trash on our county roads, who would do that?
Well, no, go ahead.
Who would do it?
If he didn't take the workhouse crew and go do this, who would do it?
It would still be the inmates,
Still the inmates.
but it would fall under the workhouse supervision
Staff.
versus,
Matter of fact, one of your commissioners sitting over behind you who works at the workhouse, he's the new driver of the inmates for the workhouse.
supervision would just fall under a different department.
You got three different roads that need to be picked up. 2 are being done by the workhouse right now, and 1's being picked up by Mac's department. So the question, I think, is being, do we continue down that same road and still have the same issues inside the workhouse with the same inmates all trying to get on the happy bus, or do we combine all 3 of them together and just turn it back over to the workhouse? Correctional Work Center, I'm sorry.
So if Mac's driver didn't go pick up the happy bus, you're calling it, who would do their work if they did not do it?
You would just have a workhouse.
The workhouse do it all?
Yes, sir. That's what we're discussing tonight.
A headache you want out of, Mac.
Could be. Inmates are not fun to deal with. And I will tell you this, and it's happened before most of you were around, and I know it was well before the mayor was elected. I don't like dealing with inmates. They can tell fibs and stories and everything else, and they have more rights than I do. So we had a real slow day, and I took 4 drivers and put them in a litter crew van with a litter crew driver, and the other litter crew driver took the van and went to the workhouse. My 4 drivers picked up 7 miles of trash when the litter crew picked up 5. Now, why does that happen? You spend time going over there to get them. You have to take them back and some other stuff. It's a lengthy process. So the workhouse, using their inmate labor, they charge so much. They say it's worth so much per hour, and I guess that's a true statement. But the headache is not really worth that.
Mr. Chairman?
One second, Mr. Blair. Robert P., I interrupted you a minute ago. Did you still have a question?
No, I'm good.
All right, Mr. Blair.
So, and this may be a question for the mayor as well, what would be the process to remove this from solid waste back to the workhouse?
I think a conversation with Bill Cope would be, needs to be part of the loop.
I think before we go switching that, I think we need to sit down. I would like to sit down with both Mac and Mr. Cope and see how we can make the corrections with what we have. If we don't feel that we can make those corrections and keep these guys from bringing contraband back into the correctional work facility. That's why we got Bella. Bella is now sniffing out that tobacco that they stick places you don't want to know about when they try to smuggle them back into the workhouse so they can smoke at night. So I think by having that discussion before we do that, but the next step would be either he gives it up or they give it up, but we're still using inmates, right?
That was just a point
We'd
of
transfer from budget, from one line item in this budget and transfer that monies over to the correctional workhouse in that budget.
That's the question I'm asking.
Yes,
is, say you go through this process with communication and the decision is to move it from solid waste.
That would be up to the county commission. I would come back after I'd discuss with them and make a recommendation back to the commission.
Again, I was just looking for the information. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Any other questions on budget or anything else? Mac, can you continue with what you have?
Amendments. We have several budget amendments we need to do. I'm not sure which page you're looking at first, the one that's filled up or the one that's just at the top?
Yeah. I'm trying to see which one comes up on our tab first. The one with the amount of $264,500 is on the bottom right-hand corner is the one that comes up first.
Okay. So starting at the top of that, we need to move some money into maintenance repair of vehicles, $25,000, into towing service, $1,500, into uniforms, $1,000, and into utilities, $3,000, and that would be $30,500 being moved from the motor vehicle line item, all being in the same budget. Move on with the others.
All right.
And then in the other waste collection budget, which is mainly the Haley Road operation, we're going to be short $200 in communications, which would be telephone. So we're going to move that out of the $499 line item out of that same budget. Also, another one is contracted services. That's where we pay waste management to recycle the glass and the plastic. So that's $3,000. It's coming out of other solid waste equipment line item. And then at the landfill, it's equipment and machinery parts, $1,000, plus utilities, $400 coming out of the fertilizer and lime and seed, $1,400.
Any questions or comments? All right. The next item looks like a beautification issue. So does that conclude your reports?
So that's, you want to vote on the?
Yeah.
On the budget line item?
Yeah.
Well, let's do this other one. This is actually a grant. Actually, it's the grant we just talked about. Do you want to do the grant, or do you want to do the budget separately?
Let's do the budget. Let's do the two budget amendments. And then we'll do the reports. We'll do the reports together as one roll call. Can we bundle the two budget amendments as one roll call vote? Or do we need to keep those separate?
They're all coming out of Fund 116, but they're just different budgets within the same fund.
Okay, so, yeah, then we'll do the budgets together as well. So I would need a motion to approve his reports.
Second.
And a second. So let's do roll call for Mac's reports.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes. And now I need a motion to approve the two budget amendment requests.
So moved.
Blair, and a second from Commissioner Piercy.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes. All right, Matt, continue on.
Next thing you should see is the Tennessee Department of Transportation Highway Beautification Office. Is that what you see at the top of the page? 2020-2021 Litter Grant Program. Is that what y'all have next?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a grant that comes through TDOT each year. The money varies a little bit. It's based on road mileage and population. So total value of this year is $113,200. This year, because of the coronavirus, we did not have to do a resolution through the county commission. We just had to get the mayor to sign off on it, but I still wanted to get y'all's approval for him to be able to do that. So what you look on that first page is the work plan. It explains what we actually try to do with the inmates and the crews. And then the education plan is next. And it does multiple sectors of the education, even through business and government. And then you get to the litter budget. And they only want it in 3 line items. So the top line item is for salaries. So that would be your 2 full-time litter crew drivers and your part-time, which we don't have but 1 litter crew driver right now. We don't have the other full-time or a part-time. Down below that, you'll see supplies and materials. That's going to be your fuel, maintenance on the vehicle, your trash bags, your pickers, and we have to provide sunscreen and all that kind of stuff for them. And then at the bottom, the one line 18 is the educational piece. That's the amount of money that has to be spent on education. So that's how that money is broken out. The money that you put into line 18, that's the minimum amount that we can put in. They tell you what our minimum is. So that's the minimum. You cannot take any of that money back out of the budget. How we just did budget amendments for solid waste, that money cannot be taken back out. It can only be spent for education. The other line items can be amended just like we just did. So we can move more money into education if need be, but we can't take any out. Any questions on that?
On line 89, on the budget you have where it's education, you said it's grant. Is this going to be on top of that, or is this the same grant?
Same thing. And now that, since what you see in the budget, that $33,000 has been moved up into the part-time line item instead of where I had it. And I had it there just as a placeholder to make sure we knew we had to spend that. So what we need there is approval to apply for the grant and for the mayor to accept the grant.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner P., I believe. We need a second.
Yes.
Second.
Shanto is a second. Any discussion? Is this
The only thing I'd like to say is, the education part of this is what we should all be about. I mean, we're talking about raising fines for people throwing trash out on the roads. We're looking at the problem of recycling, how to recycle. We've looked at the problems of people contaminating the recyclables that we have at our convenience centers. So, education's got to be a priority here if we're going to do something about this problem that we've got.
Do we have to match any funds or anything, Mike?
No. The way the grant works is we apply for it, we receive the grants each month. We'll turn in our invoices for any expenditures we've had as far as fuel costs and maintenance costs, the salaries for the people involved, be our litter crew drivers and our education person, and we'll send that to them each month, and it's a decline, and they'll send us a reimbursement. So if everything works well by the end, and usually it has been in the past, by halfway through the 10th or by the 11th month of the year, we're out of money on the grant funds. Now, if you look at that budget, the budget is more money than what the grant is. So we spend more money than the grant covers. But if everything goes the way it should, we will run out of money, out of grant money. We'll spend it all before the budget year is over.
All right. Roll call, Rachel.
Commissioner P.,
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherino,
Yes.
Commissioner Blair,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. All right, Mac, I have one other item of business for you. Do you have anything else on your list?
I do.
Okay.
The mayor talked about the RFI. In this packet, Becky and I have talked for the last 3 nights. She was dealing with her mother and her other issues, and there's a page and a half before the RFI, and that's questions, and that was to help me answer the questions that y'all had. So the reason I wanted to put that in your packet is that way if you've got questions of the RFI, you can refer back to this, and it may answer those questions for you.
Rachel, are those questions he's talking about in the email you sent me?
I don't believe they are.
No, not from those, but they should be on your SharePoint.
Okay.
No, sir, that would not. These questions just came today.
All right. Thank you.
You'll send those to me, I'll send them out.
Mac, will you send those to Rachel so she can disperse those to us?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. By the way,
Any other questions on the RFI stuff?
Becky has confirmed that she is available for May 13th at 6 o'clock, so that is set, so put that in your calendar. All right, Mac, I have a question for you if you're done with your reporting.
I am.
Okay. I sent out to the Public Works Committee and sent to you today some email correspondence from some of our friends again in the Rockvale community. Commissioner Reed is here today also to interject if there's anything that needs to be chatted about. But they sent a site map, again requesting some alteration to a back fence and a proposal of moving a shed and moving the old fire station to make egress, ingress a little safer, in their opinion, for both the workers and the visitors of that facility at Rockvale to help with traffic flow. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to communicate your thoughts on that one more time. I know in the past we have chatted about this, and I want to put this to bed one way or the other tonight. So I know these folks have had this in advance for a day or so, and you got it today, but you've seen this before, you know what it's about. So the thought was, with the budget crunch and not knowing exactly when we'll be moving across the street, would a little bit of money help alleviate some of these problems? And so your thoughts, you have the floor.
It would be more than a little bit of money. But you asked my opinions, I'll share it with you. These folks had an opportunity to have a nice convenience center 5 years ago. All the good folks at Rockvale sat on their hands and didn't come and speak for it. 2 people came to speak against it. That's what got it stopped. When it came through property management the last time, Commissioner McAdoo came that close to closing the thing down completely, but he stopped himself. And I asked him after the meeting, I said, "Is that what you're getting ready to do?" He said, "Yeah, but I stopped." So grant money was involved. We wound up moving it to Leanna. We've struggled a lot at Leanna. When we've had the meetings about it, the people that want it won't come and speak for it. The people that don't want it are the ones that speak up. So guess who gets heard and who gets what they want? They also want the store across the street that is literally almost falling down to be saved as historical, and y'all have done that. Y'all have basically given them the store but not the property underneath. Where they're going to go with this is if we spend the money and improve it just a little bit, they're going to try to get everybody to say, "Oh, we don't need anything else." The same people that are pushing for this tonight are the same people that sat in that room 5 years ago and said, "We don't need a convenience center there at all. Don't need it, period." And now they're pushing for it again. So to do what they want to do, of course, they don't have it to scale, and I give them credit that they don't have it to scale, so they were guessing. In her email, she actually says that. To move the building, move utility pole, and you have to move the water line. And the way she has it drawn, there's really not enough space to make that right-hand turn and to go down between the container and the fence. Most of the drivers that you see out there can do that, but you've got a lot that can't. So you're going to wind up with your fence torn up a lot, and you're going to wind up with other people's vehicles torn up a lot. Along that left side, if you're standing there looking from the back of it toward the street where she's got all those containers, there's not enough room to put those there. If you put those there, then the truck doesn't have enough distance to get in there and get out. The way the original thing is set up for the center, which she's changed it completely, there's 5 open tops in that center. Usually 3, sometimes 4, backed up to the fence that faces the road, and 1 in the center somewhere else, and a blank spot for an open top. When the driver comes in with an empty open top, he sets it in the blank spot, he gets him a load from somewhere else. And then there's a scrap metal container in that center, and there's also an aluminum can container and 1 paper container, and then the cardboard compactor. For those of you that may not have been to the Rockvale Center, that's the same setup Rockvale has had ever since it was built. Leanna, same setup it's had ever since it was built. Rockvale's been enlarged just a little bit over the years. Leanna has not. But when I started driving for BFI back in the late 80s, we hauled those centers. Each of those centers are on the same schedule they were 35 years ago. Scheduled to go on Mondays and Thursdays. All the centers had one trash compactor and 2 open tops. Most of the time when you go on Monday morning to that center, you'd haul the compactor. It wouldn't be full, but it'd be full enough to haul, and you might get an open top. You go back on Thursday, you might get an open top compactor not full enough to go. That was even at Weekly Lane in Smyrna. Weekly Lane in Smyrna today has 3 trash compactors, 1 cardboard compactor, 14 trash open tops, 3 scrap metal open tops, 2 plastic containers, then 1 for clear glass, colored glass, 10 aluminum, plastic. All those are in there today. On a normal day, all 3 trash compactors at Weekly Lane will fill up and go. And usually on a Tuesday and a Saturday, most of the 14 open tops will fill up and go. Population growth in this county has been enormous. Solid waste has changed very little. Charlie Baum, not that important, was his statement. So to try to keep up with what we're doing, I think our department is doing a pretty doggone good job. Now, to answer your question, does this need to happen out there? I think we need to build one across the street, to be honest with you, and not spend the money where we are.
All right. Commissioner Reed, do you have any comments? I'll be happy to recognize you if you do. Otherwise, I will consider this matter closed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. And when you talk about this center at Rockvale, gentlemen, all of you know that has been a concern of mine ever since I've been elected as a county commissioner out there. In 2014, when I became a commissioner, that's where I started. 2015, I come forward asking, could we not do something with it? And we started at that time, but then there was the concern about the old store building, and I backed off. But then I stood back as long as I could, and then we started working on it at that time, and we went through all of that discussion before property management, and then we ended up at a dead end. But I knew when I became commissioner at that time that that center was a problem. It was a problem then, and it's become a worse problem now. Fixing it, yeah, you could possibly do some of these things right here, would slow it down, but it's not going to help it because of the growth that we're seeing in that area out there. The growth is not going to slow down because we're seeing signs go up every Saturday, just like you do right here in Murfreesboro, up and down Highway 99. People are moving in that direction. We have a new high school out there now. Eagleville is known for its quality education. The town out there is improving so. We're seeing that. There's been a discussion about the old fire station out there. Remove the old fire station, expand backwards. You can't remove that old fire station at this time until we get another fire station out there. You take away that old fire station, it still has equipment in it. There's still an old fire engine in there. There's a brush truck in there. It's in there for emergency. We still have people designated to go in there and take those engines out when it is needed. If we take that away, that means that the possibility of people's homeowners insurance, and I think you would understand that, Commissioner Blair, that if that station's removed, it increases the rate of the insurance in that area because that station is no longer there. This is something we've watched. The little metal building that is there to the side, you know, when I saw this plan, I thought, you know, this is nothing new. I think you'll remember, I mentioned it to you, didn't I, Mac? When we didn't accomplish anything back in 17, I went to Mac with this same idea of, I've walked this center many, many days of saying what we could do differently. The The thing that is really causing us problems now out there in that center is this situation we have, the OSHA situation, where you have to stop and wait for the one in front of you to unload and go on, which backs up the traffic tremendously. That's a major problem, and it's a very short distance because they have to wind out there. Yes, this would take cars off of that road out there and put them in a longer distance to go in there, but what you got to understand is that where that compactor is sitting and where the cover is sitting, that you still will only have one lane of traffic going in and out. Now, I know they mentioned that a possibility, I see the dotted line of a second line going in there. There's going to be problems of blind spots as far as seeing people, the possibility of accidents. Also, you closed one entrance up there. You can't get trucks in and out to allow people in. So there are problems with this and what we've got there. I'm just like Mr. Nolan right here. Solution to that is to build a new one across the road. And to make these changes, I think there's still going to be some cost that we'd be involved with. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed, Chairman Reed. All right. Mac, anything else?
Yeah, comment. Indulge me, please. Gentlemen, we've got a long task. And I've been in this job for pushing almost 15 years and been on this task for over 10 of it. We have a hard time getting our general public to want us to do anything with 2 convenience centers, the 2 smallest ones in the entire county. One of them actually expanding it on the same piece of property. The other one is the one we just talked about, moving it across the road. So when we finally come up with some solutions, and I don't have a clue what our solutions are going to be for our solid waste, it's going to be a whole lot harder to get whatever it is we want because our general public doesn't want anything. They want to be able to throw their trash away for free when they want to without any restrictions whatsoever. So we have them spoiled. Those are also your voters. So you're going to have to be concerned about whether or not you get voted in or out. Those decisions are going to be some really tough ones because we have a hard time doing the easy stuff. We've got some really hard answers coming. So if we can get this RFI and get some information in and start making decisions, and once we make the first big decision, I think all the rest of them will be a little bit easier. But we need to move forward. What killed this progress that we had started 3 years ago or 3 years ago, I guess, is we got into election time. If we mess around with this and we get into election cycle again, it's going to be another 2 years before we get anything done. Any comments? I'm finished, sir.
No, sir. Thank you, Mac. Thank you for your comments, duly noted. I believe this committee tasked itself several months ago to, in regards to this RFI and the ultimate RFP, that by the end of the year we would be in a position to begin start the contract, entering into the contract stage with different vendors. So that is our goal by the end of this year, to be in a position to have some final folks in mind and have a vision. So, Mac, we by far hope to exceed the decision-making process well before the next election cycle. But that means we got a lot to do and to push ahead. So we will be talking about the RFI and putting that to bed on May 13th at 6 o'clock. This has been an enjoyable meeting. I appreciate everybody's time and effort. We got a lot of things accomplished. But we still got a long way to go. Anything else from the Homeland, Commissioner P., Commissioner Dodd, anything from your end?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. So moved. No roll call on this. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Chairman.